let's write like Margaret Atwood. And if I had to describe Margaret Atwood's writing, I would say that she writes in such a way that I am always trying to peek around the pages to actually see what happens in the story. And it took me 4 months. Here I'm writing in black, and I'm just writing down all the things that happened to Scylla in her lifetime, so the kind of key moments. And I don't have the bus thing on here, actually, which would have been a good idea just to write that down when that happened. I'll pop in and do that, I think. But I just kind of write down all the different like major events of her life in black. And then I went in and read, and I wrote down things that happened in her lifetime that she didn't really take notice of. And then when I decided she would start to notice the world around her, the sort of first key element, I did this recently for myself, kind of thought, what was the first sort of news story that hit me? And for me, it was the death of Diana. That was the first time I noticed that something happened in the world. One mother of a friend who was very angry and upset that Mother Teresa died on the same day and nobody cared. And I took note of that. I was like, oh, well, yeah, that actually is a thing. I remembered when Jim Henson died, that Sammy Davis Jr. died on the same day, because I'd known Sammy Davis, specifically a version of Alice in Wonderland where he plays the caterpillar, and I was really sad that he was dead as well. I just know what that was for Scylla. So for Scylla, I've marked that in blue, and that really keys into her, and she realizes that people have different opinions about a public event, and she has an opportunity to have an opinion and a feeling and a thought about that, is when gay marriage was made legal in Australia. That isn't necessarily going to make it into my story per se. It's a really cool exercise. I'm really thankful to Margaret Atwood for this workbook, even more so than the character questions that are on the page before in the workbook provided from Masterclass. This actually made me think about this, and maybe just because I thought about it for myself recently. I first read A Handmaid's Tale. I had to read it for school, and I hated it. I loathed it. I didn't get that it was a satire. It felt too real to me, and I felt that June was really passive. I felt that she didn't take enough action, I think. And I was just really mad. And I didn't like it at all. And I didn't, the characters aren't likable. And a friend who loved Margaret Atwood wanted me to go see her read Year of the Flood. Get an opportunity to see her speak before she passes. Because as she continuously reminds us, she's not going to be here forever. Microphone just fell. That can't be good for, it or me or you. She got up there and she read and she sang. Some of them have songs at the beginning, hymns, and she sang, and she was so compelling that I decided I would read her again, give her another chance. But I bought Oryx and Crake because it was the first one. Got her to sign it, and got my picture taken with her. I've had a few pictures taken with Margaret Atwood. I do love her. I couldn't put it down. It was just so gripping and so powerful, and I just loved it so much. Year of the Flood I didn't love quite as much, and although I've got a signed copy of Mad Adam, I haven't read it yet. Because there was such a gap between, because I read Oryx and Crake in like 2 nights, and then Year of the Flood was already out, so I grabbed that and read it in 2 nights. Which is a lot. Margaret Atwood is not an easy read. When I read Blind Assassin, which I don't have a copy of because I put it back in the bookshop because I didn't get it signed. 4 months to read Blind Assassin, and I still don't know what that book was about. I love Margaret Atwood, so I actually signed up for Masterclass back in 2018, I want to say, to take her course, which I did, and policed through it and did all the homework. I was really diligent and did all the work and loved it to bits. But I skipped over the write by hand, which I think is really interesting because having tried to write like David Lynch, you can check that video there, writing by hand has been like revolutionizing the way I write. And I thought Margaret Atwood was a pantser, and this is why.
Started in the first person and that's not going well, try switching to the third. If that character isn't working out for you at all, maybe you need to come at it from the point of view of a different character. maybe you've picked the wrong narrator. Writing The Blind Assassin, I think I had to start it 3 or 4 times.
Now I'm thinking she's more of a plantser, and it's because she said this.
The rule that I made for the book was that nothing went into it that had not happened in real life somewhere at some time. And that's why I collected all of the research.
One thing Margaret Atwood does that is also done, Judy Blume and to a certain extent Hemingway, is once they've written in their writing down, once they've done that, they transcribe it onto the computer. And this is an opportunity to revisit the work and to kind of edit as they go. And that is really interesting to me because this step really, really helps. And none of them, even though, you know, they probably have the money to do so, none of them have somebody else do it. They do it themselves. And I think it's really important, and I'm really excited to give this a go. For years, I have been typing directly. And since I did that Write With Me, or Write Like David Lynch video, I've realized that how valuable writing by hand is. And it's funny because I took Margaret Atwood's Masterclass years ago, pre the fire, so back 2018 probably, maybe 2019, and like phased that out. I'm like, well, I'm not going to write by hand. Writing by hand is ridiculous. I mean, I'm a much faster typist, and I'm a very fast typist, I think. Me, not waffle, which I tend to do. I tend to waffle a bit because while I'm thinking, I type, whereas while I'm thinking and I'm writing, I make notes about what I'm thinking, and then I tie them together. And I'm hoping my reader is just a little bit ahead of me here. They're not going, what, bus, what? Oh, I know what's going on. But if they're not, they're going to know now. What Margaret Atwood says is you've got 3 options. 1, your reader knows just a little bit more than your characters do. 2, your character knows a little bit more than your audience. You see this a lot in an unreliable narrator. I like an unreliable narrator when it's done well. If it's done poorly, then it can be just a mess. Feeling like you're jerked out of the story because I was like, oh, well, you knew everything because you're like all knowing, and that just kind of ticks me off. That would be my one complaint about Knives Out, which was a fantastic film. Well, I knew this all along, and it's like, well, that's annoying. Like, I wanted to know that. I also thought his accent was a bit bad. Your third option is they're exactly on the same page. For a horror, I feel like when you want it to be scary, you want the audience to be anticipating, the audience to kind of know a little bit ahead, because then they're dreading it. Dread is really great. As Poe said, dread is the absolute tastiest of fear. I mentioned a lot in this video the different kinds of people I'm writing like, and if you want to see any of those Write Like videos, check out this playlist here.